Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tracy Whitaker, and I'm the Associate Dean for Academic and Student Advancement in the School of Social Work. It is my pleasure to welcome you to an exclusive dialogue between deans, the intersection of social work and the arts. For several years, the social work profession has been examining its relationship to other disciplines, and the arts are no exception. Social work is a profession whose bedrock is social justice and whose commitment to individual, family, group, community, and organizational well-being is unwavering. Today's conversation will explore the relationship between social work and the arts, as well as examine places of convergence that we can build upon. At the outset, we know that social work and the arts are forces that both disrupt and heal. They attract our attention to what is inequitable and what is broken. They also compel us to see the best of ourselves in our precious community of human beings. Social justice advocate Brian Stevenson reminds us that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. In too many places, the opposite of poverty is justice. Similarly, actress Stella Adler said, "Life beats down and crushes the soul, and art reminds you that you have one." I am excited about today's conversation and about our amazing deans. It is my pleasure to introduce Dean Phylicia Rashad. An accomplished actor and stage director, Phylicia Rashad is Dean of the Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts and best known for her award-winning role as Claire Huxtable on The Cosby Show. She has appeared in NBC's This Is Us, in the popular Fox TV series Empire, and in Terrell Alvin McCraney's Peabody Award-winning series David Makes Man on the OWN network. While television was a catalyst in the rise of Ms. Rashad's career, she has also been a force on the stage, appearing both on and off Broadway, often in projects that showcase her musical talent, such as Jelly's Last Jam, Into the Woods, Dreamgirls, and The Wiz. Rashad became the first Black actress to win the Tony Award for Best Actress in a Play for her role in the revival of A Raisin in the Sun, as well as the Drama Desk Award. And in 2022, Rashad won her second Tony Award for Best Featured Actress in a Play for her performance in Dominique Morisseau's Skeleton Crew. Among Miss Rashad's film credits are Creed and Creed 2, Just Right, Tyler Perry's Good Deeds, For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide, When the Rainbow Is Enough, and the 2020 release A Fall from Grace. Recent film projects include Black Box, Soul, and the Netflix holiday musical, Jingle Jangle. Ms. Rashad has also received countless esteemed awards and honors, honorary doctorate degrees, conducted master classes at many colleges, universities, and arts organizations, and is a proud alumna of Howard University. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dean Sandra Edmonds Crewe. Dr. Sandra Edmonds Crewe is Dean and Professor of Social Work at Howard University. Prior to joining the faculty, Dr. Crewe served in executive-level positions in the field of public and assisted housing. She has research, scholarship, and public advocacy in the areas of caregiving in the African American community, social isolation, and social work education, history, and leadership. Dr. Crewe is passionate about giving back to the community and delivers numerous presentations to community and faith-based organizations. She also holds numerous appointments on boards at local, state, and national levels, including the Maryland Affordable Housing Trust. Dean Crewe is an NASW social work pioneer and has served as a member of the board of the National Association of Deans and Directors of Schools of Social Work. In 2022, Dean Crewe was named one of Next Avenue's 101 Influencers in Aging. This exclusive list recognizes remarkable people, bringing solutions, innovation, inspiration, and big thinking to the aging space. Since assuming the decanal leadership of the School of Social Work, Dean Crewe has focused on expanding opportunities for students. Some of the innovations that have occurred under her leadership include the expansion of degree offerings beyond the MSW to include 3 dual degrees: the Master of Social Work and Master of Divinity, the Master of Social Work and Master of Business Administration, and the Master of Social Work and Master of Public Health. The school has also launched an online program that allows students from across the country to become Howard-prepared social workers without relocating to Washington, D.C. The School of Social Work is currently ranked number 16, placing it in the top 5% of all social work graduate programs as determined by the U.S. News and World Report. It is clear that we have 2 giants in their profession with us today. Please join me in warmly welcoming Dean Phylicia Rashad and Dean Sandra Edmonds Crewe.
Thank you so much, Dean Whitaker, for those very brief introductions. You know, in social work, we don't always follow the guidelines. And I said that neither one of us would want a long introduction. So would you agree that was a bit much?
No.
No. You needed more of my acting career to be added to that? Is that what was missing?
That would have been lovely, because you see, that's what people don't readily recognize about the work that you do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll just leave that one. So again, it is certainly exciting to be here today with my colleague and now my friend. You know, many of you know her in her various roles, but I know her for her humanity. And that's the intersection of social work and fine arts, when we're paying attention to the humanity that we are responsible for. So before I begin this interview with you, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what are the career options in the Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts?
Oh, okay, that's a very good question. There are 3 departments. There's the Department of Art, the Department of Music, the Department of Theater Arts. And within each department, there are several concentrations. For instance, in the Department of Theater Arts, there's acting, there is design, there is theater administration. Okay, that's just 3, to name 3. In the Department of Art, there is electronic studio, there is animation, there is painting, there is sculpture, there is arts administration. In the Department of Music, there is classical voice, instrument, music education, just to name 3 of their, I think they have 8. So coming from the College of Fine Arts, you have arts practitioners, yes, performers, yes, and artists who paint and who sculpt, who use mixed media, who create art through computers, yes, and photography. That's another concentration. You also have the educational component in each department. So people are also educated to educate.
Okay. I raise that question because often in social work, people minimize what we do. And I was thinking the same thing in fine arts. We don't often know the full range of what is being done. For example, my niece graduated with a degree in fine arts and clothing. And so, the intersections are really great as we think about what we do in social work and what you do in fine arts. So I wanted to just segue a bit and sort of get your thinking about something we call here at Howard School of Social Work the Black perspective. I know our students know the Black perspective well, right? How many principles does it have? 6. So the 6 principles of the Black perspective include affirmation, strength, diversity, vivification, social justice, internationalization. So I wanted you to kind of think about that. How do you see the principle of social justice showing up in the area of fine arts that we may also benefit in the social work curriculum for?
All right. Did you see, and I know you did see because she's your very good friend,
Yes.
the Walters collection?
Yes.
How many of you were able to come to the Gallery of Art and view this? I'm sorry you missed it. Social justice ran through this entire collection. Sometimes it's overt. Sometimes it's very subtle. Sometimes you could almost miss it. But it's because what are artists expressing? Artists are expressing themselves. We are expressing our understanding of ourselves, but we're also expressing our understanding of life, the people around us, the communities in which we live, the world that we would like to see.
So when I think about art therapy, and for our work with children, critically important, and also older people, right? I know your mother is 100 years old, right?
Yes, she is.
Right. That is something to celebrate.
Yes, thank you.
And so as a gerontologist, I know sometimes that art can trigger lost memories in terms of doing that. So when we think about the various areas of art, it really interfaces with our profession. Particularly, you mentioned the Genesis exhibition. I'm so proud of that because the Pat Walters, Mrs. Patricia Walters, is a social worker. And she is the holder of that collection that she donated in part to your school. But as I was thinking about it, how would I have used this Genesis exhibition in social work? I would have probably had my students walk through, identify one of the pieces, and tell a story about how it might make a difference in someone's life. Now, most of you all know that I am a pure fan of Harriet Tubman. So one of the exhibits was Harriet Tubman, and I think if I were teaching social welfare policy class in social work, I would say, tell me how Harriet Tubman influenced social action.
Yeah.
And so that's a way of intersecting it within our curriculum, as well as making sure that we honor the people who are part of our past. And if I recall in that exhibition, there was also something on George Floyd, a tribute to George Floyd and the painful price he paid there. So I think art is one of those areas that we think about. But also, Dean Whitaker started talking about all of these roles that you have had. I must admit my favorite is for colored girls. I mean, that absolutely, in my opinion, was a film made for social work. Because it talks about the feelings and emotions, but it also would help us in thinking about suicide prevention. How do you address individuals who are facing some of these crises? Child welfare is included in that genre when we begin to think about that. But here's for my direct service people out there in direct practice. when you play roles like Gilda in that one, and there's trauma all around, what do you do to make sure that you don't internalize that trauma that you are portraying as an actress?
Yeah. Well, I have developed an understanding that I am not the doer. And the more I practice with this understanding, the more I'm able to facilitate the work. It's as if the work flows through me, but it isn't happenstance. It flows through me informed by my developed disciplines and training, the use of my instrument. By that I mean my physical instrument, my voice, my intellect, and my emotions. I have to call on my entire being, everything I understand about myself as a human being, to portray another human being. But I always say a prayer. And the prayer is that the work will be an offering. That's how I work.
So when we think about trauma-informed practice, many of the roles you played help us to think about how trauma has influenced the person's life. And in social work, we like to ask the question, not what's wrong with you, what happened to you? And so many of the roles do that. And it gives us a genre that we can have that dialogue with others and have them look into someone else who's experiencing something similarly to us. So I thank you for being a part of those roles that highlight the practice of social work, because I saw that very strongly. There was actually a social worker in that particular movie for colored girls who was struggling with the child welfare needs of the children. So as we sort of think about performances and movies, I know many of our faculty members use them in the classroom, right? And so we use them to really help to understand some of the dimensions that are going on. You know, when I think about social work and the arts, music therapy, for example, you had a wonderful, wonderful program at Rankin Chapel. And if you haven't seen that wonderful program, it's called We Worship. And what I noticed in that, other than the wonderful musicians, I mean, every instrument I can imagine was featured in that sermon, but it had a lot about culture. And in social work, we focus on culture. You know, it's not just starting where the client is, it's understanding the client's culture.
Yes.
So how does music help us to understand cultural dynamics?
Ooh, yeah. So just think about all the genre of music that you're familiar with. Just give yourself a moment to think about whatever classical music you're familiar with. Think about music from this country alone. Think about blues. Think about jazz. Think about spirituals. Think about hymns. If you're familiar with the sound of indigenous American music, think about that. All right? Music is the outgrowth of life itself. Huh? When we hear, let's say, when we hear gospel music in its pure form, not just that which has become commercial and performative for entertainment's sake, but in its purest forms, It's the words and the melody. There's science in this that isn't always explained to even people who perform, who sing and enjoy, but the heart embraces it. I'm privileged to have a lady in my home who serves as a housekeeper, and she sings all through her day. She just does not work without singing. That in itself is cultural. That's part of our culture as a people, yes? Music is sound. Sound is many things. Sound is provocative. It is informative. It is inspirational. And it can be healing. There is this instrument that began the We Worship service, the kora. Are you familiar with it? It's a stringed instrument, all right? This instrument is hundreds of years old, centuries old, and its purpose is to call one back to one's self. And when you hear this instrument, you don't even realize this is happening to you. But what is happening to you is you're being called back to the center of your being through this sound. At first you think, oh, that's an interesting sound. And then as you listen more and more to it, you say, well, that's a beautiful sound. And as you listen more and more to it, all your thoughts begin to go away. They begin to fade. And you're just present in yourself. That's what this instrument was designed to do. I learned this in ethnomusicology class when I went, and Jele Amadou Kouyaté, he's 150th generation Jele, was explaining this instrument. Music does many things. When you listen to these grand symphonies, you know, as children we were privy to these recordings in our class. Our music teacher would come around and she would play, and they would have us create drawings inspired by what we heard. And all the drawings would be very different for everybody. But music is evocative. This is why music is so important. So music in its roots, what is it? Art in itself? Art has its roots in worship. That's why we gave that title to that offering in the service, We Worship, because that's where the arts come from. Painting, music, dance, theater, all originate in worship.
Well, you know, as I was thinking about it, again, being a gerontologist, I'm often focused on how I can connect with older persons who have some cognitive concerns. And one of the things I know, if I sing the happy birthday song, doesn't matter, I am not a singer. It resonates, it's the longest lasting memory. And it doesn't matter the culture. The happy birthday song is still there. So what you're saying makes perfect sense. So it sort of, it wakens parts of us
Yes.
that we sometimes are not aware that is still functioning at certain levels. Now, you have this member of your family who knows a little about dance.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, little about dance?
Very, very little.
So I noticed in the We Worship, there were also dancers. So how does dance fit into all of this awakening of the spirit?
Well, dance is physical movement, right? But this is physical movement that is representative of spirit moving inside oneself, or something that has happened to someone in one's experience, or an imaginative flight of fancy, or a creative way of expressing gratitude and appreciation.
Well, I think some of us, at least in my generation, watched Fame. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's a homework assignment in terms of doing that. But it really did deal with disparities,
Yes.
socioeconomic disparities,
Yes.
and how children who may not have had an opportunity received an opportunity in doing that. So it certainly builds a bridge. And sometimes in social work, we're looking for a bridge. We just can't connect with talk therapy. So here's an opportunity for that. And I just recall watching that and seeing how young disenfranchised persons
Yes.
were able to shine
Yes.
because they had the talent
Yes.
of dance and
Yes.
music.
Yes. They have the power of creativity. That's a power in the soul, and we all have it. It comes through one way or another.
You think we all have it?
I think we all have it. I know we all have it. I know we do.
Well, I don't often disagree with you. We have it in different degrees. How shall I say that? The strength perspective?
No, it manifests in different ways.
Oh, is that what that is?
That's what that is. You have it.
Oh, got
in
it.
spades.
All right, I'll take that. I am just absolutely okay with that. Social work is a profession, and not only do we address older people, their children, their adults, there are minorities, sexual minorities, LGBTQIA+. And we are often challenged to find new ways of reaching out to individuals who are experiencing different forms of discrimination. How can the arts help us with that?
Different forms of discrimination, yes. I've long felt that what the arts reveal is humanity, that is common to all of us. Not only what we see and hear, but what it makes us feel inside ourselves when we experience the art. I wonder at this discrimination. I think it's mind stuff, quite frankly. I think it's stuff that people learn. I recently, have you seen the film Origins yet?
Oh, I haven't, but they have.
Yes. All right, this film is Ava DuVernay's, I would say her contemporary masterpiece, because she's going to do more work. But this is a masterpiece, and it is based on Isabel Wilkerson's book, Cast.
That I know.
She made this film in 37 days on 3 continents. And what she reveals in this film is this common practice of humanity of sectioning itself off in ways that doesn't allow humanity to see itself in its fullness in itself. I've always wondered at that from the time I was a child. I grew up during a time of legal segregation. And there were these water fountains that had these signs on them. And I was all of 9 years old standing in the supermarket, and I looked over at that sign and I said, I wonder what that water tastes like. And I said, I'm gonna go see. So I walked over to that fountain I was not supposed to drink from, and I drank that water. And I thought, it tastes the same. It was going to be a long time before I would articulate that humanity had tricked itself, had tricked itself into not seeing itself fully. And nobody benefits from it. Nobody benefits from it. So through the arts, as in social work, you have expression which is about humanity. And sometimes that expression is very direct in addressing discriminatory practices and offering solutions to them. But the great solution is to get people to think about it and to act on it. And that's what social work does. You all, the action piece. Yes.
You know, when I think of early days in social work practice with me, HIV had just made its appearance. And some of the things people did were just absolutely horrific. And so I decided that it was about fear of something you didn't know. But the movie Philadelphia was such a powerful way of sharing a story of hurt that individuals had to experience, but also bringing out, it wasn't the HIV, it was the person.
Yes.
If you focus on the person and not the condition, then you're able to see something differently. So like you, I too was a child of that period where it was legally endorsed that we were separate and not equal. We went through the evolution of the claim of being separate and equal. However, one of my recollections during that time frame when I was around 5, my sister decided to take me to a local, we call them drugstores now, you probably call them pharmacies now, and to get ice cream at the counter.
Yeah.
And so she decided that would be a good day for us to get ice cream. And of course, I love ice cream. I couldn't think of a better thing to do. So we go in and we sit at the counter, and we are told to leave because colored children could not sit at the counter. Now, that didn't bother me so much, because if I could take my ice cream with me, I would take it outside. But what bothered me, there was a black man standing there. And I'm wondering, well, why didn't he tell them to let us sit there? Not knowing that he was powerless to do that, but yet he stood there and protected us to make sure that nothing happened to us. So as we sort of think about the trials we experience in life, there's sometimes someone there that we're not paying attention to what their true role is. And his true role was a protector. And I was seeing him as a person who did not have the strength to let me eat that ice cream at that counter. So something about reflection, looking back at moments, really gives us another lens of thinking about this.
Yes. Our people were never powerless. There were, when I look back at it, it's the biggest mind game played ever. It's mind game, and it continues, not just with our people, but with everybody now. Now you see the truth. All of this stuff is manipulation. I mean, it's just people telling you who's going to be the next president before the first vote is cast, just telling you this is what's going to happen to prepare you to accept it. So you think, well, there's no point in going, I'll just stay home.
Well, I know social workers are smarter than that. We are going out. I can tell you this is the smartest generation I've
Right.
seen. So they're going to exercise.
And take people with them.
And take people with them.
Yes.
Because we're going to hold you accountable
Yes.
for doing that, because people paid the price, right?
Yes.
For you to have that opportunity. And so I'm going to hold you accountable for the outcome of this election, because I'm claiming a different outcome.
Thank you. Me too. I'm
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
We're together on
Okay,
this.
all right,
I
okay.
told
It has been stated, you all. So you said that social work is a profession of action.
Yes.
We want you all to act on that. Act on that. So we kind of talked a bit about the intersections of social work and fine arts. And we talked, individually about expressive therapies and how they match. So what is the future of our programs working together? What do you think that looks like?
I think the collaboration that we had just before Christmas was great. There were, I think there were 2 students from the Department of Theater who went to South Africa with your program there. What was
Yes.
the program?
Playback theater.
Playback theater. That's a beginning. You and I talked about collaborating, and we said, well, how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do it. We're going to do it, and we did. That was incredible. It was an incredible experience for the students, to showing them, letting them see the therapeutic value of theater.
So it speaks to, we do some things separately, but here's this opportunity.
Yes.
But you also provided this opportunity for me to be there with Misty Copeland.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
the kind of her film on gentrification, social work. I mean,
Yes.
that's what we do when we're looking at macro practice, thinking about gentrification. But what are your thoughts about her contribution, Misty Copeland's contributions to social justice?
I think her film Flower is incredible. I was thinking about it earlier today. Have you seen it? Okay, we have to figure out how you can see this film. So she is this critically acclaimed ballerina. She's a very deep thinker as well. And in this film addresses unhoused people. It addresses the mental state of unhoused people. It addresses the social injustice of that. And then there's all this beautiful dance throughout the film. It's part of this, it's incorporated, it's like a living part of the story. So she uses her platform as one of the foremost dancers in the world, and she uses her art, ballet, to bring this film for viewing. And it's about social justice.
And it starts, what I recall, about it being very obvious that someone was going to be evicted, and perhaps some cognitive concerns with an older member of the family. And so when you see that played out as a social worker, I start thinking about it and connecting it to someone that I know who's going through a struggle,
Yes.
and how we might approach it differently. Because, when we use the same techniques, we may miss the opportunity to serve. And that film made me think about how often we miss the opportunities to serve because we think there's only one way of doing it.
Oh.
And how you pay attention to people's transitions in life. Because it spanned almost every generation as I thought about it. It was about older people, it was about younger people, and it was about loss.
Yes.
What happens when you lose things. So again, that's another opportunity that we had to collaborate.
Yes.
Colleagues, when Dean Rashad was first appointed, I made sure I got over there very quickly because I had a vision of this day. I had a vision of this day. And so we started talking early about possible collaborations and that. But I think it's something we really have to focus on.
Yeah.
It's having fine arts students in the classroom with social work students so that we can learn from each other and grow with each other. So I think, the next generation has to focus on not social work in isolation,
Or
fine arts in
isolation,
isolation.
yes.
How do we bring the two of those together in the same classroom? I could be in a voice classroom. She said there's still hope for me. I heard it. It was the strength perspective, but we have marvelous artists among our social workers out there. And so how do we bring that talent together? Dean Whitaker talked about the dual degree programs we have. Can you envision a master in fine arts and a master in social work? Is that out there somewhere?
I think that's delicious. Yeah, I like that. Because we have music therapy. We have a concentration in music therapy as well in that Department of Music. So why not? Let's do this. Let's don't just investigate it. Let's do it.
Okay. I think that really solidifies the integration. Because when we do it at your Chadwick A. Boseman, and then we do it at the Annabelle Burns Lindsay School of Social Work, how about bringing us together? Because I know that's what our founding dean would have liked. You would have liked her, by the way.
Yes.
Annabelle Burns Lindsay, and because she really said that our School of Social Work would be second to none. And that's what we have worked toward. And collaborations like this make that a realization that we can be second to none if we use the talents we have here on campus. So I'm just so grateful for this opportunity. Now, I know that you all are waiting to be able to ask questions. And so we certainly have an opportunity for you to do that. So with the permission of my colleague here, we will open the conversation for anyone in the audience who would like to join the conversation. So I don't know, tell me how we're orchestrating these.
I just want to say,
Or use your outside voice, one of the two. Yeah. You got a big voice, okay.
So, one of my favorite parts that you played was in the Husky, and you did something about Baltimore. So I live in Baltimore. I have 2 teenage daughters, and I played that for them. More so because it was very inspirational in 2 minutes. How do you really feel about the city of Baltimore?
The problem was not Baltimore. The problem was running off to see the wretched. The problem, and lying about it. The problem was not Baltimore. The problem was lying. That was the problem. How do you convince your young people, especially as they enter teenage years? Because the only reason, and I learned this with my children as I watched them grow. People begin to lie because they think they're going to be censured. They're going to be criticized. They're going to be punished. And when children see that, or they're going to disappoint. And that's when the child begins to bend the truth. And that's fear-based, right? How do you convince the child, okay, yeah, no matter what it was, tell me the truth about it. because they're hard-pressed, a young person is hard-pressed to believe that. So then that in greatest measure, that has to do with the adult's response to whatever the problem is. You know, it takes a lot of patience to be with young people, not because of them, but because of us.
Yes.
Because our minds are so full of stuff, and we get so distracted, and we're being pulled this place and that, and we become impatient. When heaven is right in front of you in a child. My mother said if we knew the truth about it, we would understand that our children are our best form of entertainment. She did say that. She said our children are our best form of entertainment. And I remember at the birth of my son was born just a couple of months before my sister opened on Broadway in her first featured role, in a role that I had been called for but couldn't accept because I was great with child at the time. And my mother came to visit and she was holding my son and she looked at me and she said, Phylicia, I know you think you're behind, but you're ahead. You will never do anything more important than this.
You know, that's phenomenal advice when we're working with young parents who are, as some of my students say, on the struggle bus. That this is the best thing and the probably most intensive thing that you will do, parenting. So, okay. Other? Okay.
Good evening, Rashad.
Hello.
I'm going to introduce myself because I feel like it makes for the best conversation.
Okay.
So my name is Sarah Carlos. I'm a first-year PhD student in the School of Social Work.
Uh-huh.
And as my dean said, thank you for your contribution to the field of social work. I have a question for you. I put it in my notes.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about how to incorporate arts to group focus in therapy. And I want to know your experience with working roles that are laced in trauma, right? Being around your co-workers or your co-actors. Does that help you to process that trauma? Being around them and sharing triggers that may come up collectively?
You mean as in discussing it amongst ourselves?
Yes, like
In a company.
everyone acting in like tough roles and just processing it out together, like so for colored girls. And everyone having really tough roles embedded in trauma. Having that collective space or that group space to process together, do you find that helpful?
So the way I work, all right, I'm just going to say it because you're asking. I never go to the dark side of anything. I look for the light. I look for the light because the trauma is the light covered up. And I have to find the light. And then the trauma seems very real. The trauma seems very real to the person who is, to the audience. Because what I'm exploring is how the light got covered up. If I went for the immediate, readily thought of idea of what that trauma is and how that is not the truth for me. The truth for me is how this beautiful light got covered up. How did this beautiful light begin to perceive itself as contracted and small or not at all? But I have to see the light first. I got to get to the light. And even in the midst of all of the ugliness and the hurt and the pain of whatever that trauma was, I'm looking for the light. Because what is the truth about human beings? The truth about human beings is light is our true nature. Light is the truth of who we are. I mean, now they're saying it scientifically, all right? The saints and seers of all ages have been saying it since time immemorial. Now the scientists are joining in saying, yes, we're made of stardust, it's true. That's what they're saying. But no, but it's light. We are light beings. So when we see people, you would think about the horrible things that happen to young children that they cannot control. They did not invite. That's light being covered. That's light being suffocated. That's light. And somehow, when people are restored to the understanding and experience of this light that never went anywhere at all, because what it is indestructible, it is untouchable. It's still there. It's just that there's so much stuff on top of it, you don't remember it. So much stuff on top of it, you forgot it, or you don't believe in it anymore. Look very deeply at people when you see them, and you'll see this in them. How to bring people back into understanding and awareness and experience of the light within them so they can heal for real. You can feel that, right? Yeah, you can feel that. So once I saw this gentleman in the DMV when I was getting my license. And he was a man in struggle mode, and he had a little girl with him, and the little girl had his face. So I knew he was her father. And he was being very gruff with her. He was being very gruff with her. Because whatever was happening inside him was on his mind. And I looked at her, and I could just see in her that what really hurt her most was that she was displeasing to him. That's what children want to do, is please us, right? When they want that. So I walked over to the gentleman and I said, this is my social work for the day. I walked over to the gentleman and I said, is this your daughter, sir? And he said, yes, it is. And I looked at her face in all sincerity and I said, she's so beautiful. What a beautiful child. And he looked at me and I said, and she has your face. He smiled at me, and then he took this child and brought her closer to him and hugged her. And I thought, okay, that's one good thing I've done in life.
You know, I think in social work, there are two principles of the Black perspective that your commentary reminds me of. Affirmation, strengths, right? And that was what was at work. You really, you matter. She matters in terms of doing that. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. There's okay. Let's go to the back. Okay, all right, doctor. Okay.
I'm Annie Brown. I'm retired professor from the School of Social Work. To both of you, this is very exciting. When I heard about this vision for collaboration, it was exciting to me. I'm a social worker from back in the day. Okay, so back in the day, we had social work and group work, and I took both because I felt I needed as many tools as I could get to put in my box to do the work that I needed to do as a social worker. So in the School of Social Work, we had a class in group work where we learned dancing, we learned how to use art material, depending on your skill level. but it was focused on being able to work with children in groups using something that would be close to them and allow them to express themselves. I think in fine arts and social work, we bring our whole selves to this profession. And when I worked in admission, when I was still a doctoral student here, I used to get very excited when I found a person applying to the School of Social Work that had a background in dance or music or art, because then they brought so much more with them that they could put into the toolbox. So I'm really excited about this vision, Dr. Crewe. I think I've expressed that to you before. Before social work became so enamored with talk therapy, there was another side to our practice that allowed us to incorporate many aspects, other dimensions, and especially the arts. I mean, I learned to play the guitar, so I could play the guitar and strum along with my little kids, you know, because sometimes I was working, doing social work with a nursery school, and would strum along with the little kids, with the teenagers. I've used the role of spirituals in the mental health of African Americans. And so I feel one way to work, you keep saying I'm in gerontology, it's nothing like going to an older person, and Dr. Crewe, you can sing a little bit more than happy birthday. But just get one of those old spirituals and you will have a connection. So I hope this works out. And Dean Rashad, I think for the fine arts students, they could be looking ahead. Not everyone is going to end up performing.
That's right.
And if they had an additional social work degree or a dual fine arts and social work, it would mean a lot to them in the kind of career they could have. So I think that this is an exciting idea.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
You know, Dr. Brown, you make me think about who out there, you can put your hands down for a moment, who out there is also engaged in the arts and social work? I just want you to see that we already exist out there.
Oh, I know.
Put your hands up again if you really
I
are,
I
you know. So we already, Dean Whitaker, please put your hands down. But anyway, but I wanted you to see, we're not starting from ground zero. We have alum out there, we have students out there who are very engaged in some aspect of the arts. So who's orchestrating the Q&A here?
Hello.
Okay.
My name is Jamila Hayes. I'm an alum of Howard School of Social Work, class of 2017. So I want to say thank you to both Dean Crewe and Dean Rashad for having this conversation. I also want to give you both a love offering after the show of my own artwork, just to say thank you for having this conversation. But this question is personal. So I'm at a crossroad in my career where I am wanting to fuse my passion of education, social work, and art. And I am noticing that this is going to be something that I will have to create for myself. So my question is, when mapping out a story as a social worker and an artist, how do you center a piece that can take many roads? And this is a question for both Dean Crewe and Dean Rashad.
So what do you mean when you say center a piece that can take many roads? What do you mean?
So quick background, one of the things that I'm working on right now is fusing a documentary talking about education and the impact that it has on students from a mental and a cultural perspective. So I work for a nonprofit currently where we send primarily students of color to predominantly white institutions that have a history of racial tension. And I'm noticing that there are a lot of avenues that I want to tackle as far as the history of the school, but also the experiences of our students, but then also talking about the political demographic that's going on and then talking about some of the strength-based perspectives that they're doing to change these narratives on the campuses as well.
How would you change the narrative on that campus?
So for example, one of our schools that we work with is Sewanee University. The history of that school is that it was originally a Confederate armory base in Sewanee, Tennessee, which is also on the Trail of Tears. So at the university currently, there are under 100 African American and students of color. And what they've been doing is bringing in members of the community to do group projects. They also have a historical project where they talk about a history of the white cemetery and the black cemetery on campus, where there are actual slaves buried on campus. But they've even taken it a step further, where they've created multicultural centers, and they've also created an art portrait project where they have portraits of former deans that are African American, or even some of the students, custodial officers on the campus, and they are telling these stories through the art of portrait creation. So that's one way of doing it. But then there's another school that we work with, which is Lafayette College. It's a private campus in Pennsylvania, over 200 years of history, but they have like a civil rights building on campus. And on the placard, it talks about the civil rights of white land-owning Anglo-Saxon men. But this is a civil rights building, but they're not attacking the issue of racial injustice on campus. So it's kind of like there's two different stories that I could tell, but I'm really struggling on how do I meet my message without going all over the place with it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I want to jump in here and think. I don't know that I can specifically answer your question, but I do know there is opportunity for individuals who can provide tools for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, because it's a part of curriculum. But I don't know that we quite know how to pull this thread through. And it seems like some of the things that you're talking about may well be something that individuals, corporations, nonprofits are like, how do we do this? It's one thing to say we want diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and justice, because they keep adding dimensions to this. But what are some new ways of doing it other than simply talking about it in the classroom? Is there an opportunity for someone like you to show, here's another way of getting to that? So, okay, okay.
What
Thank
she
you.
said.
So I have the mic. I wrote it down so I can say what I need to say. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janice Farabee, author, speaker, elected official, former founder and chief woman warrior of Farabee Enterprises International, best known for our award-winning Got It Going On empowerment program for girls, and also a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania School of Social Work, although I was a member of the National Association of Black Social Workers here. So I want to thank you both for this special Black History conversation. Dean Crewe for your work in social work, and Dean Rashad for sharing your gift with the world, and also for having narrated 2 documentaries, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And whenever you share about my relative, Dr. Dorothy Golden Farabee, it gives me a great deal of pride. So my question, I am relaunching the Got It Going On Empowerment Program for girls, focusing on Black girls in 7th grade. It's a rites of passage, social, emotional, personal development, enrichment program, but the rites of passage experience. And right now it combines fitness, issue discussions, field trips. I have some ideas, but I'd love to hear from you all how to include the arts in my program. Thank you.
Well, who's working with you?
Who's working with me?
You're not doing all this by yourself.
Well, I ran the program 20 years ago, so I'm relaunching it now.
All by yourself?
No, I had facilitators, I had individual program developers, I had individuals who were part of the brought in individuals who did all that, come to speak. I had individuals who were the fitness consultants. So I had different people who did different things.
Okay. So what you might consider is, among those people who are working with you, might there be someone who has some training, experience, affinity for the arts? Might it be possible for you to visit galleries? Might it be possible for you to invite artists to come to some of the meetings that you have? Not just one, but maybe a couple or a few. Exposure is what I'm suggesting. And that's your question, how to do it? You invite them in. You just invite them in.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We did go to South Africa with Step Africa. We'll be going back again for Step Africa's 30th anniversary this year. But that's a great idea. Individuals coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm a double alumni, but I'm also a social worker currently, so I work with children. However, piggyback off of, I don't have a question, but I just want to speak to what we're doing right now. I'm speaking about the arts and combining social work. So I have a young child right now, and he's not the only one that I've dealt with, but this is the most recent, who does have some mental issues, trauma from that's dealing with his parents, but the school system is not educated to work with him on the trauma, but he's very artistic. When I say can draw, and that is his comfort. So when they pull it away from him, he becomes irate. And instead of addressing it the right way, they like punish him, suspend him. And so I'm saying that it really has to start there. Instead of when we get older, to have that foundation of being able to educate the teachers that's coming up and the ones that are already in the system to know how to navigate for these young children to have that expression on whatever art form it is for them, because they're not understanding the impact that it's going to have on him on the long run by punishing him for something that's a comfort.
Arts are fundamental to human development. Before a child can read, a child can draw a picture. And before a child speaks, a child sings. And as soon as children can stand, they are dancing. It's fundamental to human development. There was a time when arts were just part of education from elementary school, kindergarten on through. And I think those people who removed it knew exactly what they were doing, or what they thought they were doing. Because you see, the energy of it finds itself into another avenue and comes out another way. You remove the study of literature, you remove the study of music, but here comes rap and it's right there. That's because the rhythm continues, the energy continues. You can't stop it. And it's going to find its way. Creativity is going to find its way, because that's the nature of creativity. It's the nature of the energy. And I agree with you. This child that you're referencing, he sounds genius to me. And I don't know why we, as tax-paying citizens, continue to elect people to take things from us and pay them a salary to do it. What's wrong with us? But
I think I see a little social justice advocacy here.
But yeah, it's true. Mm-hmm. This is what we do. Mm-hmm. You know, because these things have been enacted, sanctioned, by elected officials. Stuff being written into law, policies being changed, and done by people that we've elected to these positions. And I'm looking up saying, now, wait a minute. You're going to tell me in the 1950s, during a time of legal segregation, we had instruments in our schools. We didn't own the instruments as students. Not all individual students owned the instruments, but I played viola. And it was a badge of honor to have an instrument to take home and practice with. So imagine my chagrin years later when I'm in a stadium somewhere and I'm talking to someone from my hometown and they're telling me, and I'm saying, well, so what happened with this? And well, no, those programs were discontinued because it was decided that if a child's parent couldn't afford to buy an instrument, the child wouldn't want to learn how to play it. Well, none of us owned the instruments that we played. And yet, we allow this. The question comes down to me now is like, okay, I see what's wrong with them, but I want to know what's wrong with us. Why do we allow such nonsense? Why do we allow these things to be perpetrated upon our children? Why do we allow it?
I think you bring up an interesting aspect of this. Often we're pointing at why do they do this? And you're suggesting that why do we allow them to do this? And that's a whole different, that's a reframing of this whole thinking about social justice, not people taking away things from us, but what are we doing? Mm-hmm. Advocacy to ensure that it doesn't happen. So thank you for sharing that. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miss Shalay Wright, and I am a graduate of the Howard University School of Social Work, class of 2017. Thank you, Dean Rashad and Dean Crewe, for hosting this platform for us. Dean Rashad, I would first like to thank you because when I was a little girl, I would watch The Cosby Show. And I loved The Cosby Show. I still love The Cosby Show. So representation matters to that little girl who was in me. So thank you for representing a woman who was just about education and raising a family, a strong family, an educated family, and a loving family. But my question to you, I would like to know, what was your aha moment that said, hey, I want to pursue the field of acting. I want to learn more about the field of art, and what makes you stay there?
Well, now that's a question. I grew up around art. My mother, Vivian Ayers, is a poet. So there was always that presence in the home. And my mother was from Chester, South Carolina. It's a little mill town. And she attended a school, Brainerd Institute, that had been founded by the Presbytery. The Presbytery had founded a number of such schools through the South. And in this school, she was privileged to have a wonderful piano teacher. So she played the instrument very, very well. And she knew music very, very well. And she taught it to us. She was my first music teacher. But she didn't just teach us. She brought our friends in, too, from the neighborhood. Yeah, we were all up in there together, learning music, learning principles of speech, choral speech. She taught us all these things. It was integral to, look, it was the same as throwing mud pies at cars that were passing by. We did that too. It was just part of growing up for me. And my father was a dentist, so there was this other component, this medical thing going on. I mean, I was exposed to all of this. To me, it was one soup. It was all the same. But when I was 11 years old, and you know, that's the time when little girls start worrying about, am I pretty enough? Am I pretty enough? Little girls go through that. And I didn't think I was. But my teachers loved the way I spoke, so they always had me read the prayer or say the anthem or whatever that was. I was chosen to be the mistress of ceremonies at a festival that involved the elementary schools. And they rehearsed me day and night, literally, before and after school. And when the evening came, I was dressed in a beautiful dress and had little curls in my hair and a flower tiara on my head and ruffles on my socks. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, that's pretty nice, that's not so bad. And I approached the microphone holding my script in my hand that I was supposed to read. But I knew it by heart and I didn't have to read it. And it was the first time I stood in a spotlight. And the spotlight was so bright I couldn't see anything but the light. So all evening long, when it was time for me to speak, I talked to the light. And I just talked to the light. And when it was over and some mothers were coming to collect their children, I heard one say to the other, there she is. There's a little girl who spoke so beautifully. Isn't she beautiful? And I thought, yeah, when I grow up, I'll be an actress. I'll play in the light and be beautiful all the time. Well, what I couldn't articulate at that time was the beauty that I experienced. I mean, it really was a beautiful feeling. It was so beautiful. It had nothing to do with what I was wearing or what I looked like. It was communicating from my heart because I knew that script by heart. And that's the place that I spoke from. That's why I became an actress. And I came here to train. Because wanting to be an artist is one thing, but committing oneself to the training that is necessary, that is involved, that's another layer on the cake. And that development is ongoing to this day. I still go to class, one class or another. And sometimes I sit in on classes, and sometimes I just sit and listen to what students are saying because I learn so much from them.
You know, one of the things you said that I think is critically important, not only did your mother teach you, it was the community that she was taking care of. When I recall growing up, we were one of the few families who had an encyclopedia, the World Book Encyclopedia. Everybody came to our house to use the World Book Encyclopedia because the local libraries did not allow blacks. So, but it's that communal thing. It's not just for your children.
Right.
It's for other people's children.
Right.
So that's really important as we think about not just our family, is the broader family is our family.
Yes.
So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Khalila Rashid. I'm currently a dual candidate here at Howard University studying my Master of Social Work as well as my Master of Business Administration. I just wanted to thank both of you for being here and for allowing us the safe space to bounce ideas off of one another and express ourselves. And I have a two-part question, but this is something I'm just dying to know. So, Dean, Rashad, I would like to know where your metaphysics comes from, where your in-depth perspective comes from. How do you access your light, and has the work that you do impacted your embodiment of light? I also have another quick question.
Well, I can answer the first one. I gave it all to her.
Yes. I picked up on that.
Okay.
Would and both of you can answer this, would you say that there's an age limit on pursuing a career in fine arts?
Quick question, no. There's not an age limit. And in terms of metaphysics, about that. Children are so impressionable, yes. It's so important to give the right messages. I used to love sitting in the church pews. I did. But when I was 9 years old, I read about Harriet Tubman. And I read about her being hit in the head with that brick. And I read about these spells she would have, which seemed that she just fainted and went away. And when she came to, she had some different kind of understanding. She had an intuition about her. There was something intuitive about every single thing she did, and especially in the Underground Railroad. Faith and intuition, the will and the determination to survive, but not only that, but to see others free. That made a big impression on me as a child. This inner understanding, this inner knowing. And then I watched my mother very carefully as she worked as a poet. My mother would get up in the morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, and she would write between the hours of 3 and 6 because the world was very quiet. The phone didn't ring, and we were supposed to be asleep. Her second book, Hawk, was published in 1957. It's an allegory of freedom that uses space flight as a metaphor. And this is before the conceptualized word Afrofuturism. It was published 11 weeks before the launch of Sputnik 1. And in this allegory, a person becomes very tired and despondent of life as he knows it, and decides to become something else. And says, well, being a human being is not so great. Let me become something else. What can I be? And thought about being a frog and leap around naked all day. Yes, that would be cute. But then something might come and eat me. Just contemplating all these things, and then looked up and saw the night sky and how vast it was, and decided to climb a tree, sit on a branch, and just contemplate the heavens, contemplate that night sky, and sat up there for so long. Would get down just to eat enough, just to keep the body going, knowing you were transforming, but not into exactly what. And looked down one day, and the feet had turned to talons, and there were little winglets coming out of the shoulders. Transformation she's writing about. And this being takes off for the sun, the greatest light, to become part of it and absorbed in it. When I read this book today, it brings me to tears. You can live with your parents and not really know who they are. And my mother's quest for freedom was not just for herself. It was for us and for anyone else who wanted to move beyond the realm of sleep. We celebrated her 100th birthday by republishing her book through Clemson University Press.
Well, I'm thinking just our next conversation may have to be about lessons learned from our mothers. My mother she did fancy stitching on shoes. See any connection to shoes and my mother?
Yes.
So she was a fancy shoe stitcher. But more importantly, she was a seamstress, and that really does fall under the discussion of fine arts, because you have that clothing piece there. But one of the things she did, and I didn't appreciate it then, but now I see it. I have two sisters. She would make our clothes, our dresses at the same time, but she finished all of them at the same time. So there wouldn't be preference to one daughter over the other. She would make all the sleeves, all the bodices, and would put them together. So it was never making one and then moving to the next. It was doing it together because of concern that we all were equally important in doing that. So thank you so much. I know we're coming to that. I told you I wouldn't keep you beyond a certain hour. So I think we are. Okay, go. Okay. Hi.
Thank you both so much for this conversation. I have felt so energized hearing from the both of you. And so I just want to say thank you for your passion and your vision to hold space for us. But I wanted to circle back to a great question that Dean Crewe brought up at the beginning of your conversation. Dean Rashad, she asked you about how you deal with the very important roles that you play. And I felt like she was speaking to, in some ways, what I've learned through the School of Social Work as a scholar with is secondary trauma. And it made me think about when I was a young scholar here, my professors taught me about the necessity of self-care. And they would always say, as you begin your practices, social workers, heal yourself. Go to counseling and never stop, because to hear stories and to take on lives and to sit in spaces with people who have dealt with depression and experiences that are very painful to the soul, because of that energy we have, we take that on as helpers. My question is to Dean Rashad. I was curious if there are messages similar in your school where young actors and artists can have messages that affirm the need to sit with someone to deal with first who they are as they take on new identities through playing these important roles. So to have a space that reminds them, who am I first before I begin to step into someone else's world? What is the message like for budding artists to be able to first be grounded in self? Because I felt like I still hold that message years later through the School of Social Work about that important work for me. I would love to hear your response on that.
Well, you heard me say earlier, I am not the doer. I'm not. That is an understanding that is not easily come to. But that understanding is very, very helpful. And in terms of having a young actor, a student, be vested in and armed with and equipped with some form of protection, the breath. The breath. To sit quietly with one's own breath. To just watch it go in and out. To observe how your mind, like a little monkey, will jump from thought to thought, like monkeys jump from branch to branch, until it becomes quiet, and it's quieted by the movement of the breath, the even movement of the breath. It releases many things. There's some things I find I can't and don't want to talk people through. Don't want to get too heady about. Oh yeah, and young people surely do think, oh, well, I've got to feel it. I want to feel it. No, you don't, honey. Trust me, you don't. You know, it's like, what you want is to have other people understand what it's like for somebody to go through that. But you don't have to feel it. You don't have to take that on. That's not the job. That's not the work of the actor. The work is to understand it. That's the work. And through a real understanding, it transfers. It transfers to people. Because it's very painful to watch these, when you hear about actors who just get into something, and I know it can happen. I've seen it happen. I played a woman one time who was so dastardly. I said to that woman, you don't get to cross off stage. You stay on there. You don't come up in the dressing room. No, but she was really like a wreck. And I just knew, I can't do it. I can do you on stage, but you don't get to go in the dressing room with me. You stay right there. Yeah, she was a mess.
So that's avoiding toxic relationships, right?
Child.
Well, no, that deserves a honey child.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you so much. I wanted to just piggyback on what you just said. That is the intersectionality of social work
as well, because we cannot get so engrossed and so caught up into the feelings and the circumstances of our clients, and that we are no longer any good to them as persons who are helping to foster and help through their healing journey, right? So that's very important. But I want to just introduce myself. My name is Nika Jefferson. I'm a double bison, class of 2000 from the Arts and Science, class of 2002 from the School of Social Work. Dean Crewe was one of my teachers when I was here, taught me statistics. And I just want to tell you, Dean Crewe, that you're like a superhero to me. I just want you to know that. Okay? Really, because at a point in time in my life where I did not feel seen, you saw me, you saw my potential. And I will never forget that. And Dean Rashad, of course, you are part of the fabric of our lives. You really are.
It's interesting.
Something that you said early on Dean Rashad, something that you said early on was talking about yourself as a vessel as an artist, right? Using your entire body and it being a spiritual experience. I have an intern, I think she's still here. Yes. Gabrielle Swilly is my intern. She's an artist as well. And I have been providing field experience for social workers for many years now. And one thing that I always tell them is that social work itself is a spiritual experience. Social work is a craft. That's how I describe social work, that we are coming to a person using our entire body and essence. That's why it's important for us to know who we are, to be in touch. So everything that you were saying, I said, oh my gosh, that's social work. That's exactly what I, teach to my field and my social work interns when they come to me. Finding what's within you, that personage within you that can actually be a partner with the person you're working with to go along with them on their healing journey, using every part of yourself, right? And my friend over here kind of took my question because I was going to tie that into, the importance of self-care, and the fact that we as social workers do need to make sure that our self-care is taken care of. It's a part of our ethics now, and so I'm not going to get into that because I was going to ask you, from an artistic perspective, right? Where would you see us, finding our own self-care? I feel like we oftentimes find ourselves like an expert in self-care, especially when we tell other people, but not always within ourselves, right? I guess my question to you, Dean Crewe, and I'll just keep this question. As we're using ourselves and we look at social work as an art craft, as a craft, as being creative, in meeting each person where they are, with whom they are, understanding the person. How do you see us, doing that as a creative? What are some things that you can kind of impart on us as social workers to have that creative approach to the field of social work?
Thank you so much, Nika. One of the things is to be a continuous learner. It doesn't end when you are awarded a degree. If there are things that are out there, for example, AI is out there now. We didn't know anything about AI before, but we must know about it now. So I would say it's about really staying abreast with what's happening in the moment. Certainly, I believe in the tried and the true, biopsychosocial spiritual framework, but we also have to figure out when things are changing. I'm thinking about the crossroads on campus education and online education. We have to be able to figure it out and not stand in opposition to something we don't understand. So that would be my quick answer to that. Thank you all so much. I think it's good.
Thank you. Was this amazing? Can we please give our deans another round of applause?
Thank you.
I'd like to invite our SCA President, Jasmine Miller, to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jasmine. In closing, I'd really like to bring social work and the arts together using the words of Nikki Giovanni. There is always something to do. There are hungry people to feed, naked people to clothe, sick people to comfort and make well. And while I don't expect you to save the world, I do think it's not asking too much for you to love those with whom you sleep, share the happiness of those whom you call friend, engage those among you who are visionary, and remove from your lives those who offer you depression, despair, and disrespect. Wow. Thank you again. Have a wonderful evening.
I wanted to close with President Benson states that we should have maximum strength. Do you think we had maximum strength today with our two programs?
Oh, yes.
Let's give a high five to our. Thank you all so much. We're so glad to have you here. Okay.